Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Jason Washburn, co-owner of Talon Strikes Studios, the publisher of several games such as Night Market, Shadow Network, Vinyl, Winterborn, and many, many more. Jason has also consulted with several other game publishers. Jason, welcome to the binge. How you doing?
Hey, what's going on? I'm good, man. I'm good.
So when I was reading your bio, and I wanted to save this for a question because I didn't want to put this right in my intro, but you studied as opera? Do I get that right?
Yeah. So I was raised in a family of musicians. My dad was a high school music teacher, 33 years. My mom taught kindergarten, but in the home, she taught piano, voice, flute. She still runs her studio. She's 78, but she still has something like 25 students. She teaches year round and then does a big shindig at the end of every year. So that's kind of how I was raised in theater and everything. When I was junior, after my junior year, I went to what used to be Muncie, Indiana for the International Thespian Conference. And you go and audition. And it's kind of like a cattle call. There's probably 55 representatives from 55 different universities, conservatories, and whatnot out in the audience. And they bring you in about 30 at a time, and you sit in the front row and you practice beforehand, but you get 1 minute to sing and you get 1 minute to do a monologue. There's 2 minutes, and they don't even call your name. They just call your number, and you get up, you walk on stage. My accompanist walked out, and you go, man. Drop of a hat. They start, you sing, and you do your monologue, and then they offer you scholarships based on that, plus you turn in a grade packet to them and your resume and stuff, everything you've done, all the parts you played. And then, man, you wait like 2 days, and then like down at the bottom in the basement, they have this big board.
Yep.
And then you have your name, and they have all the colleges that have written in, they want to interview you underneath your name.
That's
kind of how it goes. So
you're straight up singing opera, like you're up there and you're like, wow, no kidding.
Yeah, that's what I studied. So I went to Northern Arizona University and studied vocal performance, which is basically classical opera, and did that. And then from that, I joined the Army. You can put those two together.
There you go.
Right.
So you're singing the marches, I guess, as they're doing the marches. You're the guy at the back doing all the.
I did, and I sang the national anthem at my graduation at Fort Knox.
Oh, that's crazy.
I was an M1A1 tanker on the M1A1 Abrams main battle tank.
Wow.
So yeah, when we graduated, they found out I could sing. Man, you don't want drill sergeants to find that kind of stuff out, but it ended up they found out I could sing. So they made me sing all the time. And when it came to the end of basic, which was 22 weeks for a tanker, you go to one-stop unit training, OSET. And the end of that, first sergeant called me down to the orderly room and was like, all right, they said you could sing. Sing right now. Sing the national anthem. Like, right now? Yeah, right now. Okay. So I sang the national anthem for him, and he was like, you're a hero. You're going to sing. So I was the first person to sing the national anthem at Fort Knox graduation for OSET, like in, I don't know, 15 years or something like that. It was pretty crazy. It was interesting, crazy. Man. Oh. Yeah. And I didn't have to march. I sat up on the stage with all the generals and crap, and then they brought the colors out, and I stood up, sang, and then sat back down. All the other Joes had to do the pass and review, I didn't have to do that.
That's crazy. And then how long did you serve for after that?
4 years. I did 4 years, Fort Riley, Kansas, and did a 6-month tour in Bosnia because I was mid-90s Army. So prior to 9/11, but after the Gulf War. So I was right in the middle of that, and then I got out of that, and now I work for the government. So
Oh, that's
what are
crazy.
you gonna do?
And then how did you position? How'd you pivot into like board games? Like I noticed from your bio,
Yeah,
you played a lot in the '80s, and then in the '90s, I guess you started getting into the. Can you walk us through that? Because that's kind of like
yeah.
original generation of the indie movement, right? Is like the '90s.
Oh yeah. So as a kid, my parents were teachers, so they always did a good job of making sure we had stuff to do. But video games very limited in the '80s. I was
Yeah.
an early '70s kid, born, so they always got cool artsy type things for us, like and I've seen some of that stuff like on eBay or some of the TikToks where they're like, check out this retro '80s stuff. And
Yeah.
so they would get stuff like that. And one of the things my mom would buy a lot of was board games, but she would buy like the not run of the mill stuff. They would get odd things like games that come up in weirdness. And I'm like, oh, I had that game. Oh, I had that game. So I played a lot, it was kind of interesting that way. And then we kind of fell into a groove like one summer, and got into Dungeons and Dragons, and really kind of like just took over the rules, made our own thing. But we just, for 4 months, we made all of our own dungeons on graph paper, right?
Oh, that's cool.
And so that's kind of how it started, for me in that niche. And then in '89, I played Space Hulk, and that was it. That was like, head explosion.
Yeah.
Is cool. You had miniatures, you had board gaminess. Um, and I had an uncle who was also into it. So he played like Advanced Squad Leader, paper games,
Yeah.
and he talked about them. And then he had some of the Avalon Hill stuff, old school stuff. And so I kind of played some of that, and then played in the chess in high school. And I was fortunate. The guy I was really good friends with in high school, his dad was the Arizona State chess champion for like a lot of years in a row. So we would go over to his house on a Friday night, and there are three of us that kind of hung out together. And he would be playing 3 games of chess against all three of us at one time, running them. So, I mean, that's kind of like what opened the door for me. And then in the '90s, I played a ton of Warhammer,
Yeah.
40K, fantasy, Dorka Morka, Gothic, just everything that kind of came out. Then Necromunda came out then. And that kind of really kept me going and doing it. And due to my theater background, and that pushed me when I got out of service, I got back to Phoenix and got really into cosplay. And so then, that's a lot of like-minded people that are kind of into all that same kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So just kind of played a lot of card games and stuff, and then got really heavy into EverQuest. Played that for, man, 8 years, pretty hardcore, like 70 hours a week, hardcore. Ran a huge 200-person guild, raided 4 nights a week. Just kind of, it was fun. It was time consuming, but fun. And then all that just continued to extrapolate. And 2000s, board games kind of started to take a different approach to how they did things, late '90s, early 2000s. And I never played Settlers of Catan, though. People are always like, oh, I played Catan, and then that. No, I never did that. So I kind of went different routes. But Games Workshop was a very real thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
From I bought Space Hulk, and woo, so that was always something I was painting minis and doing stuff. So I mean, a lot of people are in that world.
Yeah.
They play board games, and so it's just kind of how it happened for me.
How'd that pivot then into Talon Strikes Studios? So where did Talon Strikes come from?
So I guess you kind of play these things and you do these things, and I think everybody in their mind, like you probably do this when you play games. Oh, I don't know if I like that rule. And some people house rule stuff they take out, but some people take that further, right? And they try to say, okay, if I was to make a game, what would I do? And so it kind of started that way. And just, tinkering around here and there. And then through theater, I met a guy who's a writer. And he came up with this idea of like, what if, we make a card game and it's about, the kids in high school, right? Like, so if you think back to the 80s, you have, your jocks and your geeks and your stoners, and right, you have all these groups. So what if we kind of do that? And so that kind of continued to morph. So I started kind of working on my own stuff, and ultimately that kind of turned into this card game called Click. So based on high school cliques. And I think I ran that Kickstarter in 2011. So Kickstarter had just opened. I mean, it was pretty brand new. And I was like, yep. So 2010, I formed Talon Strikes Studios. And it's funny because I wanted it to be Talon Strike Studios, no S, no plural.
Yeah.
And so I'm at the bank doing the LLC paperwork. And the guy that files it, he thought I said Talon Strikes Studios, which is actually named after an EverQuest character. His last name is Talon Strikes. He's an elf.
Oh, nice.
EverQuest. So that's where the name comes from. But so it ended up being Talon Strikes, plural. And I got the paperwork back, and I was like, no, I was crushed. But I didn't want to file all the rigmarole of changes. So that's, so designing your own card game kind of led into that. And made friends with some people here. And it was interesting because Arizona was like hotbed of weirdness then. You had Crash Games at the time, which is defunct now. Patrick ran that. But Gamelyn Games, which is Tiny Epic and all that, Michael Coe, whom I'm eating lunch with tomorrow, in fact. But he's here. Seth Jaffe, and Tasty Minstrel came out of that, Tucson. And then like the first really big Kickstarter was Mojo with, God, what's the game? It's a dice game with a planet, and it's escaping me for the moment. But that was all here, like Tucson and Phoenix. And so it seemed very, these guys were doing it. It seemed very doable to do it. And so, you go in there with your game and you put down the table, and you got these people, right?
Yeah.
David Short was another one. He's got a number of games out. And they play your game, and they're like, yep, okay, dude, work on it. And they push it back across the table, right? So, but yeah, so you work on it, and that's just kind of how Talon Strike started. And then I tried 2 Kickstarters under a different banner, and they didn't go. And then that's when I decided, I'm not going to involve anybody else. I'm just gonna go. And I had started working on the gangster game Hooch, which was a card game, and took that to Indianapolis and played that with people in their first playtest hall. And so that's just kind of how Talon Strike started. Just not something you were like, all right, I'm going to make a company and I'm going to make a game. And it wasn't it just kind of was much more organic.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like when I even look at like Tin Robot Games, which is my company, it was the same thing. I had a game I was going to put out, and then it's like, okay, well, I got to give it kind of who's it from, right? Like it's,
right.
So we end up creating an identity, which was Tin Robot Games. And then it just kind of takes a life of its own from there, which is kind of cool. Yeah. And then, so you had, in your bio, it says that you co-own this. So who did you end up partnering up with then with Talon Strikes?
So the first successful Kickstarter I had was House of Borgia. And that was a game that Michael Coe and Gamelyn was going to do, and then they decided not to. But he calls me on the phone. He says, hey, would you like to do this? It's a Scott Holmes game. Scott Holmes has a lot of games out at that point. I'm like, well, I'm like nobody. Scott Holmes going to want me to publish his game.
Yeah.
So he hooks me up with a phone call. I talked with Scott. Awesome, down to earth dude. Just, he was like, it sounds like you got everything in order. I mean, we kind of had an interview and he felt good about that. So I just kind of did that, and House of Borgia went, and Michael helped me make sure I understood what I was, supposed to do, how to do it, when to do it, and those kinds of things. He had a couple of successful Kickstarters at that point. So just kind of worked out from there. And I ran that one, and then I ran King's Champion. And then I picked up vinyl at BGG. Eric Alvarado designed this game about records, collecting records in a record store. And I thought, that's cool. I still have a lot of vinyl. I collect vinyl. And at the time, vinyl was kind of making a little bit of a comeback, and all of a sudden it appeared back in Barnes and Noble, and Target was selling vinyl records. And so I picked that game up and ran it, and had a successful Kickstarter with that one. And ultimately that turned into a partnership. And so now Eric is half owner. He just, the money that he would have made off vinyl, he just said, hey, I won't take that. Can we just put that back into the company? And I'd like to take a little bit bigger of a role. And so, I knew him. We had worked together for about a year at that point and produced a game, and okay. So we gave him half the company, and we just kind of started from there. And he really has a different mind when it comes to design and how that works. He's real good at it, and just comes up with some great stuff. And so the partnership worked real well. We have good skill sets that mesh.
So how do you divide up the responsibilities in that? So because I know you guys, you have a combination of games that are your games, right, that you guys have designed, and then you have other games that you're publishing, of other people's games. How do you divide up that responsibility? So is he taking on more of a designer kind of a role, developer kind of role?
He does. He does a lot more of the development now. We'll play stuff, we round table stuff, and then we bring other designers in. Fortunate, like Brian, for instance, who did Merchants of the Dark Road. He did Freshwater Fly, Coldwater Crown. Merchants probably his biggest game. But he did Winterborn signed Winterborn from him. And so when we play games, when we're testing games out, I'll bring people in like that to do that. And Eric, works with them, talks with them, and we get a bunch of ideas written down, what works, what doesn't work. And then Eric kind of takes it from there. We'll sign games, and then we have so many games that there are games that kind of like I run point on, and games that he runs point on. But we cross over and mesh and play stuff. And then like the vinyl stuff, we pretty much keep in house. Eric designs it, and then we play it, and then, talk about it, what to cut, what to keep. But I would say, he's definitely lead developer in the company. I do a lot more of the customer service stuff. I run the Kickstarters. I do all the Kickstarter updates. So, I build, I'm a graphic designer. I went back to school in 2010, got a degree in graphic design, visual communications. So for the first couple of games, I did all that. We can bring in some help now. It's expensive, but we do that. So, we kind of just share at that thing, and kind of run it that way, and kind of help out where needed, kind of thing. Okay. It's like a hodgepodge.
Yeah. Well, that's cool that it works out well, that you guys can kind of have your own lanes, but still kind of have a good cohesive relationship, right? In building that company. And then, so you've got quite the portfolio that you guys have established now, right? So I think I've seen online you've got 10 projects on the horizon. There was 11 projects under Kickstarter under this company name, and you mentioned you had 2 before that, and another 11, I think 10 had funded. So you've got a lot of how are you guys handling your warehousing, or how are you handling kind of your ongoing sales? So once the Kickstarter is done, are you producing enough inventory to then kind of carry it, or what's the
So not I mean, we're not printing 5,000 games or anything, but we're printing over, sure. And then we use hit point sales, friendly local game stores that buy direct from us. We haven't hit distribution yet, really. It's a tough nut to crack sometimes. I mean, you see different people that get different things, that do different things. And you never know what that's going to be really for you. I mean, we're still looking for a 6-figure Kickstarter. I've done, like you said, quite a few of them in vinyl. There's 7 games, and they're not just reskins. They're standalone games now that they're their own thing. You play Masters of Metal, you play that game differently than you play Vinyl Base, or you play the holiday version, or you play Jukebox, which is just a 2-player vinyl. So it's really interesting from that standpoint. But yeah, that's how we have done it. Like pre-sales for vinyl are really, really strong. So that game will come in. If you're a Kickstarter backer, you're going to get your game. If you're not a Kickstarter backer, it's going to go out to friendly local game stores, but it's almost that print run that's like we're getting on the boat now there won't be much left after it goes out to what the pre-sales are. So between the Kickstarter and the pre-sales we have done, there's not going to be much left of it. We're going to be at Gen Con. Hopefully it arrives by Gen Con. And if Gen Con is strong, then it'll be gone after Gen Con until we can reprint it and bring it back.
And the plan for reprints, is it mainly through Kickstarter, or will you just do straight up reprints and then just put out a booking?
If we can do straight up reprints, we will, with shipping and containers costing what they cost. Yeah. Now, I would have if you would ask me that 4 years ago, because a 20-foot container was $5,000. Yeah. Now it's $20,000. If you want a 40-foot container, it's almost double that. It's a lot of money now. So for you to be able to generate that kind of funds up front to just bring your games over, it's no longer something that, hey, we'll just bring a game over. You need a lot more cabbage now to do that. So for a while, Kickstarter is going to be it for us. But the next set of games are just they're on a different level. I mean, we have a stable of games, I like to call it now, that are strong, and this is going to just take another notch up in the next stuff.
You're when I look at least the most recent kind of swath of games that you guys have put out, most of them look like they're Euros, right? But when I hear your background is RPG, right? So you got into the industry through RPG.
Yeah.
Why the decision to go Euros? Was it kind of following the trends, or did you change, kind of evolve over time in terms of your own personal likes and dislikes in games, and that's what led you to the Euros?
Yeah, Eric and I talk about that. Do we make games we want to make? Do we make games we like? Or do we make games that we think everybody else will like?
Yeah.
And Euros are certainly a niche, there are games that kind of hit multiples, right? So you have a Euro-esque game, but has other things in it.
Yeah.
And some of our games are much more Euro based. So I think just based off of what is out there. So, when we design a game, we kind of just go off what we like, but for instance, Byline or Salon de Paris. These are Euro-style games, but that's what the designer designed. And when we're looking at a game to pick up and it's pitched to us, this is something we want. This is something that'll work well. Winterborn, for instance, Brian does more Euro-y type stuff, but that was pitched and I was like, I got to make this game. So I didn't hone in on it because it was Euro, but I mean, that has deck building, it has kingdom building, has some other stuff that kind of fits in there. Whereas like Salon de Paris is very, it's pretty just right down that Euro line. Worker placement, tile laying, you're managing your tiles, you're making paintings, you're hanging those paintings in the Louvre. I mean, and it's all Euro-based stuff. I mean, and Byline is even, one step up from that. Same with Night Market. Night Market is really heavy Euro.
That's a great game, by the way. I just played that one about a month and a half ago. Someone brought it to our game night.
Oh, not Public Market, you mean?
No, Night Market. It was Night Market.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was Night Market. I was looking at the board on your site. It had to be Night Market because it had the sushi and the bubble tea and things like that, right? So.
Oh, okay. Then that was a prototype.
No, was it? No.
Yeah, it's not out yet. Yeah.
Then it has to be the market because I think he had got it off of Kickstarter. So this has had to be then maybe regular. So
market? we have a market series. We do.
Okay.
So Public Market was the first one. Night Market is the second one, and then we have another one, Bangkok Market, that is work that we're working on. That's not up yet, but that's on boats and stuff.
It must have been the first one then.
Yeah, Public Market is polyominoes in a fishing. So that was done by the folks that they run Flat Out Games. So before they made Calico, we signed Public Market from them. So Molly Johnson, Stankwich, and then Rob, Sean Stankwich, and then so they run that. So they've done Calico, Cascadia, Verdant was their latest one. But they designed that game and we published it, and it's polyominoes. And now there are about 15 copies of Night Market out there. They're prototype versions that we sent out.
It might have been a prototype. I don't know. It looked exactly like what was on your site.
But that's, if you're talking bubble tea, that's that game.
Yeah.
So you have workers that you put on the city.
Yeah.
And then you play tic-tac-toe with them.
Yeah.
And then you take the resources and then you build your night market. That's and right. You have the night phase.
Yep.
Then you're playing a prototype.
That was cool.
Yeah.
With the number of Kickstarters you've done now, you've obviously built up quite an audience, right? A following, I would say, probably over the years. Has that almost forced you now to kind of stick in that lane, right? Because for instance, if you come with RPG, like that's a completely different audience than what you've already built.
Correct. Right? So that's something we talk about a lot, right? Yeah. So take for instance Gamelyn Games. They make Tiny Epic. Now they do different versions of Tiny Epic, but they're always Tiny Epic. So Eric and I talk about that, but we don't want to be kind of pigeonholed into one thing. So we do have some other stuff that's out there, like Mixtape, for instance. That game's done, and it's card game that you're making a mixtape for your crush, and you're recording. It kind of has some cool mechanics where you record songs on the A side and the B side, and when you flip your tape, you gate those powers. So I might have two songs on my A side. I'm gonna record to the B side. I flip my tape, and boom, I trigger my powers, and then I record on the B side. And I'm gonna go back to the A side, and every time I flip back and forth, I'm knocking off those powers of those songs. And once I have 10 songs recorded, game ends. We have another one that's in the works. That's art's done and everything. Pinata Fiesta, and that's not. It's candies in a grid, and you're moving your llama, which is a pinata, and you're filling him with candy. So he takes candy in his stomach, and there's like a little Tetris thing to move the candies down the stomach. Jackie Davis did the art for that. It's awesome. There's these like fluffy, cool pinatas. They're beautiful. And so most of our games are in the Euro line. It's mechanics that I love, that I understand well. It's funny because Eric likes lighter games we like to play, right? Mm-hmm. His favorite games and stuff like that. And I like heavier games. So you couldn't put a game in front of me and say, well, this is too heavy for you, Wash. No, because I want to learn it. I want to play it. Lacerda, I love Lacerda. I love heavy stuff too. So I don't know. The Euro market kind of you can have lighter stuff, right, in there. Shadow Network is that way. It has these Euro, it has worker placement, but you're running this spy network.
Yeah.
And if I could use the word bitchin', the solo game in that, people are going to get that and play it, and it takes solo gaming to a new level. That solo version of that game. It has 2 missions, each with 4 scenarios, and that game is the no cell phone game. That's what we call it. Because when you're playing Shadow Network, you do not have time to get on your phone and check while someone else is taking their turn.
Yeah.
This game is like, you are just go, go, go. And that's hero-y based. So I think most of our stuff leans that way.
Yeah.
But we feel like we, definitely have the chops, the designer, circle group to do other stuff. And we have other things that are not that. Kevin Russ, who did Calico, which a lot of people love, it's just tile laying. So he designed a game for us with Josh Enris's buddy, Java Express, where you're on the island of Java moving coffee from the farms and stuff up at the plantation where they have the coffee, down this railroad track down to the harbor. And you have a train board. And if you've ever played Moncala, which is beans.
Yep.
So you have your train and you're moving coffee beans back and forth across your train car and their colors, and you're matching. And every time you get to the locomotive, your train moves down the track. So, I mean, that has some Euro stuff in it, but Moncala is not a Euro kind of thing. It's kind of like its own thing. Yeah. So it's really weird.
With the consulting you guys are doing, so I'd be remiss to say Lehman from Mariposa connected you and I together, right? So kudos to him. Shout out to Lehman. We had a great chat with him last week. People can check that out on the podcast. Go back to prior episodes. How does that work with your company? So how have you guys kind of fit in kind of the consulting and how does that kind of play out for you?
Sure. So something that we're super proud of as a company that we do that I feel a lot of other companies don't do. And I will tell you that Eric is the driving force on this. He's very passionate. So we sponsor Unpub, we sponsor Spiel, we don't have, I mean, we're not a big rich company. Eric and I still work full-time gigs.
Yeah.
And a company doesn't make, there's not a lot of money in board games unless you're selling 60,000 board games. Then you make some money. But otherwise, where we're at, no. We do it blood, sweat, and tears, right? So something we're very passionate about is helping designers primarily, and then other people. So Eric mentors 2 or 3 different designers in a year's time. He'll start with them and then help them, mentor them through their design process. And we've signed a game or 2 through this process. But that's kind of how it comes. Dan Rice, who did Trailblazer, he's a local dude here and plays in my game group, and just a wonderful, wonderful guy. And was like, hey, I want to do this. What do I need to do? Okay, here's a list. I had help. Patrick and Michael and Seth and other people who were in the business before me to kind of help me. It's kind of one of those things, like this is a passed down thing.
Yeah. Pay it forward.
You really, I don't want to be like gatekeepery at all, because we're not, but it's hard if you don't know the order or get into the lane and how you're supposed to kind of do things. If you just said, here's a game, there's Kickstarter, go. There are people that do that. But that's difficult, man. So being able to help people, mentor people like Eric does, mentors designers. We mentor people who run Kickstarters. We help them. They'll bring their games in to tabletop. We'll play them, give them feedback. We do a designer contract. It's not signing their game, but we sign their game to a designer contract for a year, and we develop it with them, and we play it with them, and we bring other testers in to play it. And at the end of the year, they get to take everything that we worked on. So you're basically bringing them in, helping them develop their game to have more depth, more theme, more flavor, and then they go out into the world with their game, and they've gotten it signed by other publishers. They've self-published, and so and we do this like nobody pays us to do it. We just do it because we want to help. It's awesome.
So what's next on the docket for you guys? I know when I looked at your site, there's a list of 10 games that, and then I think there was another 5 that said these are other ones that are even further away than that. Out of everything you have, what's the next one that's coming? Like, what's the next Kickstarter that's coming?
Sure. Salon de Paris will be the next Kickstarter. We hope 2023. So Vinyl is about ready to go on the boat. Yeah, that'll come in. And then Shadow Network and Top Pop, man, the shutdown in China was brutal on us.
Oh yeah.
And our manufacturer is in Shanghai.
Oh boy.
So they're all over the place in China, but that just happened to where ours is, man. So it was, I mean, some people they got like half. Dude, they shut our facility down for almost 12 weeks. Like nobody there. So, man, I keep having to go to my backers and say just a little longer. And they've been awesome. I'm so blessed. They're very understanding but man, I mean, that like set us back between COVID and then our art problems with our artists and then the shutdown and all the shipping nightmares. Yeah. So it's made it rough. So that's pushed our calendar back.
I think people understand that though. Like I was just going through my list the other day of games I've backed, right? Where I'm like, I know I've got a lot coming. I wonder kind of where they're at.
Yeah.
And there's at least 6 that are late, right? That are the games I backed that I should have had by now. Go in the comments and I can see again, trying to work through shutdowns in China and so forth to get the games here. So, at least I know and I think that's what most people want to know is that someone's working on it and that they haven't just left it. Right. So even little things saying and I actually saw on one of them where people are saying, could you let us know if you're just alive?
Right.
Right. So like, that's all we want to know is that you're alive. Right. So, I think people understand as long as you're communicating to them and saying, hey, look, this is things out of our control, but we're on it and we're going to let you know as soon as we know something, but we just want to let you know we're still here. I think at the end of the day, that's going to make 99% of the people happy. That they just know that the game's going to still be coming, right?
Yeah, and that's something you work hard to communicate because you're so thankful for the backers.
Oh yeah,
because the games wouldn't get produced without them. Yeah. And I can put that and say, hey, thank you. But I'm sure they get tired of hearing. I don't know. But how else do I convey that to them when I meet them at cons? I'm like, you're awesome. Thank you for the support. What can I do to convey that to you? So Salon de Paris, we've had a long time. It got pushed, and then we're finally going to get that one out. It's a wonderful game, beautiful art, just a fantastically tight Euro game. And then Byline, which was just showcased at the UK Expo. Derek, designer, he took it, and a lot of people were like, this is my game of the con. So that was a lot of people that played it just absolutely loved it. It is a fantastic game. Kind of takes a different look at worker placement because you're doing time. You're using time management. It's really cool. And then we have Mixtape, which we're trying to really just produce and bring over and not kickstart. We would really like to just print that one and bring it. It's a 4-person card game about, making the tape for your crush. And then Java Express will go. So we have those
Like every few months there's a game coming. How do people follow along? Is there like a somewhere they go to sign up? Like, do they go to your website? Like, where do they go to kind of be in the know when these things are going to be released?
Yeah, we have signups at our website. I will tell you, I apologize to everybody. I suck with the whole email, our monthly newsletter. I'm not because we work full time, man, and then you're managing all these games. There's just two of us, and just some things you can't, man, you can't handle everything. So it's rough. But yeah, if they sign up, the best thing to do is follow us on social media, like our Facebook page. And that's a great way.
And what's the handle? Is it Talon Strikes Studios?
Yeah, Talon Strikes.
I think I've seen games somewhere too. So what's the handle? Is it Talon Strikes?
Well, our website is Talon Strikes
Games, I think. Right?
.games, right. So we got a .games. But if you go on Facebook and you just type in Talon Strikes Studios, you can find us. Twitter is @Talon Strikes, and Instagram is Talon Strikes Studios, because Talon Strikes was already taken by someone else. So there are, those platforms, obviously, we hit on those pretty regularly, and Facebook pretty regularly. And when we're ramping up to do a game, that's where we push the majority of our stuff. And then our website as well, you can sign up there. And then once the Kickstarter page is up, click to notify me kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We like to get that out there as well. So those kinds of things. And then you can just straight up email me at jason@talonstrikes.games or eric@talonstrikes.games, or hit me on Twitter and Facebook Messenger. We answer those as well.
Yeah.
All those work. Some people send messages through Kickstarter itself, because you have the ability to message people that way.
Yep.
I don't care how you get a hold of me. I'll
just
try to answer you right within an applicable amount of time. Some people hit me on Board Game Geek as well.
Yeah.
I've been messaged there, so it doesn't matter. But we really want to try and get to that $100,000 mark. I mean, that's our next goal.
Yeah.
Night Market made 76 or 78, and we'd like to hit that $100,000 mark for Salon de Paris. The game is certainly worthy of it, and I know it would be a great thing for Merrick, the designer. He's been very patient through all this COVID nonsense and stuff that we've had to deal with. And man, I'm always so thankful that the people that we're involved with are healthy and well, and doing stuff, and our designers are well, and Kickstarter is still a thing. I mean, I don't know about you, but like 2020, people are like, oh, is Kickstarter going to die and all this stuff? And I think it's great. People still have a healthy appetite for board games and want to play.
Yeah, it's definitely alive and well. And I have no doubt that as we kind of come out the back end of this, that that 6-figure number will be achievable for you guys, and I'll be definitely rooting for you on this next game.
Thanks, man.
I want to wish you all the best this coming year, Jason?
Yeah. Are you going to Gen Con?
Maybe. We'll see.
All right. If you go, dude, stop by.
I'll look you up.
Stop by our booth. We'll be we're kind of near the front. I don't remember the booth number, but look us up, man. We'll be sharing a booth with Nuvo again this year. So
that's awesome.
I'd love to meet you in person and get you a promo or two.
Oh, sounds good.
For something.
All right. You take care. Cheers.
Thank you so much. You too. Bye-bye.
This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.